everyone, I'm Jeannie Liu with the GBTA Foundation. I'm here at the GBTA broadcast studio, and joining me today is Christophe Renard with Carlson Wagonlit Travel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great. We're so excited. We just launched our research today.
Indeed, yes.
Our 4th annual global forecast. So, let's talk a little bit about, the global economy is improving and growing.
Which is good news.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
So we have always observed like a correlation, a very direct correlation between the GDP and the economic evolution,
Yes.
with business travel in general, and more particularly with prices. So basically, what it means and what we predict for next year, for 2018, is that we expect an increase in rates, a sharp increase in rates of around 4%. The good news is that you're right. The GDP, the economic GDP, is expected to rise to 3.6% to be compared to 3.5% in 2017. So the economy is expected to be in a greater shape next year, and that is what is explaining that we expect business travel rates to increase by approximately 4%.
Yes. So, what you just mentioned, we're seeing prices increase in a lot of the different verticals, hotel, air, ground transportation. We're seeing upticks in all those areas. What do you think is contributing to that?
Well, you have a lot of very different components and forces. Actually, you have competing and sometimes opposite forces who can push for prices downwards or upwards. So to go a little bit in the detail, for air, we predict a 3.5% increase next year. We expect that the demand is going to increase, and it's going to be the main driver of the rate of the fare increase next year. Although we also expect that airlines will increase their capacity by 6%. So despite that element, we still expect that the growth of demand, in particular domestic demand in the Asia Pacific region, will drive that kind of 3.5 increase. That's on the opposite. You have some forces which are going to drive costs down, like the emergence of what we call branded fares or low economic fares. Might be attractive to some corporates. Therefore, you may expect some a decline for some of those companies opting for those options. Even though companies need to be really watchful and look at what is also expense and purchased by credit card on flight or when people get to the airport as ancillary services. So we need to have a comprehensive view of the exact paid fare.
That's a great point. So this report is really meant to be a resource for travel managers. So in your opinion, what would be your main takeaways or recommendations for travel managers around the world?
Yes, first of all, being very aware of all the dynamics and all the changes that the suppliers are driving. You may have some consolidation on the hotel side. You may have some introduction of new type of fares on the airline side, like the branded fares I mentioned. So, corporations need to be very up to date about all those changes that suppliers are introducing to the market, and really get some advice from their TMC or their consulting company about what that can mean for their program. That's number one. Number two, I think it's about having a very accurate and comprehensive view of the data. That means sometimes going beyond the traditional reporting that companies can get from their TMC, because to get a full comprehensive picture, you need to consolidate from multiple TMC, including the credit card also and the expense management tool. So that you can really have a good view on what is expense by credit card through the TMT channel, etc. So that's very important. And then really take a step back and think about strategically, what do you want to do with your program. We are observing more and more companies really who take a very more and more traveler-centric approach. This is not new. We have been talking about that for a long time, but I think this is really becoming very concrete, and you can see some companies taking some decisions about segments of travelers. About they may reflex a little bit, or they may soften a little bit the travel policy. So I would encourage companies to review their policy and in light of those changes and those rate evolutions that we predict for next year.
Yeah, stay agile. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
It's been Christophe and Jeannie at the GBTA broadcast studio. Thank you.